What celebrities are complete assholes in real life? No surprise here. And barely a celebrity. I saw Liv Tyler walk into an art exhibit at the MoMA that was one person at a time. The wait was literally 4 to 5 hours to get in and people would show up hours before the gallery opened to see it. When Liv Tyler walked in, she cut in front of everyone and told the guard that she was next. He told her she was not. That accommodations could be made ahead of time for busy people or VIPs. But that she couldn't just cut in front of everyone with no warning. She threw a fit and argued with him about who she was. He just shrugged and she stormed off. About 20 minutes later, Orlando Bloom showed up. Guard told him the same thing and he said that's fair. I totally get it and spent some time signing autographs. Class act, that one. Julia Roberts. I worked on a photo shoot with her and all I got to say is wow. From the moment she showed up to the moment she left. Screaming at everyone about everything. An absolute bitch to the nicest people who didn't do anything to deserve it. Apparently that is how she always behaves when there's no cameras on her. Lost every ounce of respect I had for her after that day. DJ Khaled stayed at a hotel I was working at. He went to one of the restaurants in the hotel and I was told by one of the servers who served him that he was a huge dick and complained about everything. I have heard through movie blogs that Dan Aykroyd is kind of a jerk. I met him once in middle of nowhere, Ontario, Canada. This guy was super nice to me and my GF at the time. He wanted to know what kind of beer we were getting at the beer store. What was the fish biting at this time of year? You know, just good conversation. He even asked if I wanted a picture with him. I forgot my GF was still in the store. He reminded me and waited for me to get her so we all could get a picture. It was great and surreal experience. Maybe some celebs just have bad days. We all are human. Did PR for a movie distribution company. I would set up interviews and whatnot. The two biggest dicks were Tommy Lee Jones and Mike Myers. Two nicest, Will Smith and Viggo Mortensen. Viggo Mortensen just seems like the coolest, most laid back man ever. I was invited by a friend to the opening press night of a theatre play she was doing with Elizabeth Moss and Keira Knightley here in London. At the after party, she introduced me to Keira, who was simply the most attentive and sweetest person. But then later in the evening, I found myself sat down next to Moss. I was just making quick small talk whilst waiting for my friend when one of her friends walked past mid-sentence and she reached out to her and said quite loudly, "I'd take me with you. I'm so bored." It was so unbelievably rude and I haven't shaken my dislike for her since then. Not sure how much of a celebrity he is. But that kid who played Ferguson on Clarissa Explains It All. He was at space camp the same time I was. Everybody hated how conceited he was. At first, I was all like, that's kinda cool. But after the first few sentences came out of his mouth, I didn't want to meet him anymore. I just wanted to punch him in his throat. Space Camp and Clarissa Explains It All being in the same story is very 90s. Kevin James is the biggest asshole. Buddy of mine was a waiter for him and when he asked him if he wanted anything to drink, Kevin responds, "You were told not to speak to me." Apparently his guards tell all the waiters to stay a distance from him. "You were told not to speak to me. I didn't know life worked that way." Kevin. Rachel Ray, Notaris B. I. T. C. H. My cousin worked in marketing for a cracker brand she was selling. She comes in for a photo shoot wearing a low-cut blouse that revealed a good amount of cleavage when she bent over. They asked if she could change clothes because a lot of the photos couldn't be used. She immediately blew up and was cursing at everyone. Even though the photos were for ads aimed at kids and mothers. Because she was such a bitch. They couldn't get her to understand what was wrong. Eventually they just used the photos and had to Photoshop in clothing to make it appropriate for the ad campaign. I have never heard anybody who has met William Shatner ever say a nice thing about him. Which is weird. Because he just has the face of a person who seems likable to me. I've heard a lot of people say Adam West was a huge dick. But I met him more than once. And he was incredibly kind. Complimented my outfit. Let me take a picture with him. And gave me an autograph. I try not to bother people. And I hated being that guy, even when I was younger. And dumber. But he was at a convention when I did stop him. And he was incredibly cool with it. I've heard a lot of people say Adam West was a huge dick. You probably heard that wrong. They were probably saying Adam West has a huge dick. Edit. Steven Seagal. Obviously. Steven Seagal is notorious for kicking stuntmen and the junk. He finds it hilarious. He's also been known to have hospitalized stunt performers in the past. Sending some for surgery. I have a ton of friends in the stunt industry and one told me a story about a time Seagal arrived to set late and in a bad mood. He refused to practice the stunt. During the taping, he was supposed to throw a stunt performer through a cabinet head first that had been prepared to break. Instead, he drove the guy's top teeth through a portion that wasn't prepared to break. This broke the stuntman's maxilla, upper jaw, and knocked out most of his teeth. The guy has been through multiple surgeries since the incident. Seagal just left like a f***ing prick. No apologies. Mariah Carey. She gets away with being a diva because people love it when she slays people, but she's actually a huge bitch. She's constantly bringing down other women in the music industry. And people hate working with her because her demands are too high. She came into my job. Got seated in a section completely away from the rest of the restaurant. Which makes sense. When the server would ask her a question, she didn't say a word. She would just shake or nod her head. But didn't talk to my coworker. Didn't want anyone walking through her little personal area of the restaurant unless they needed to be there. Ordered some stuff that her kids didn't even touch, so it was thrown away cause it touched the table. And she wanted to take her alcoholic drink to go. Which you can't do. I like to imagine that every time this question is posted it's a celebrity using a fake account hoping that their name doesn't show up. Andy Dick is 500% asshole. And it's frustrating that we just kind of accept that as his eccentric troll persona. His Wikipedia page has something like 7 or 8 sexual harassment and indecency cases. Even one of which would have ended anyone else's career. I knew a guy who worked with James Corden who said he was the most entitled, arrogant dick he's ever met. Wendy William. Her mouth is like a clogged toilet. Only shts come out. Edit. People really don't like her. If you ever see the Chicago subreddit, there are a lot of people who claim John Cusack is a huge asshole. Jared Leto. Totally arrogant. Unappreciative of his fans and generally not a nice guy. I saw Burt Reynolds once at an airport. And he wouldn't even co-sign on my sister's mortgage. Gene Simmons. Kiefer Sutherland, according to a guy who used to hang with him when he had a house in Alaska. And from 2 completely different sources. Julia Roberts. I know a guy who does lighting work for movies in Vancouver. Kiefer came by when they were filming 24. And asked if he could get him any weed and if he was cool with him sleeping with my friend's wife. My friend was not cool with the idea of Kiefer Sutherland sleeping with his wife. I hear Adam Levine is a bag. Apparently he told one of his fans that he only takes pictures with pretty girls. Once watched Marky Mark make fun of a 10-ish-year-old kid for stuttering because of nerves. Till basically every celebrity other than Keanu Reeves is an asshole. Whoever handles his PR is doing a hell of a job. And Tom Hanks. Steve Harvey. What a complete dickhead. I know for a fact that Catherine Zeta-Jones is a bitch who treats regular people like complete tea-roll. I used to work at Mandalay Bay in 2002 and she expected you to wait hand and foot on her and then zero tip for anything you did. An oversight is one thing as we understand that it happens with celebrities. But not to this extent. Jeremy Piven is also a major asshole eye-roll. When I was working at a cafe in Brentwood back in 2005 he was notorious for being a dick to all the waitresses there. So much so that he had to be removed on more than one occasion. At Comic Con some years ago I saw Lou Ferrigno and asked if I could take a picture with him. $20 he said. Oh sorry. Can I just shake your hand? $10 he said. Oh, and I walked away and looked around bewildered until I turned my head and Eric Estrada was looking at me. I did finger guns at him and said, "You're Eric Estrada." He zooped finger guns back at me and laughed. "Yeah, I am." Good guy. Asked Andy Samberg a question at the Pineapple Express panel and he complimented my physique. Do you work out? You look like you work out. Once. At a zoo I peed next to Mel Gibson. Edit. Forgot Eric Estrada's first name wasn't Chip. Jeremy Clarkson was an absolute ignorant dick when I met him in Dublin. Such an ass that the manager or whoever was with him came back and apologized. No surprise really with him though. Hammond was very friendly at the same time. John Elway has a huge reputation in the service industry in Colorado. He supposedly doesn't tip and treats staff like shitty. Sean Penn. Fake nice guy. Total douchebag. Dr. Seuss had an affair while his wife was battling cancer. She later killed herself. Her letter is so sad. Shel Silverstein was a shitty dad. Don't research your heroes. Mariah Carey. Michael Jordan. What about his pal No Tippin' Pippin? Apparently Steve Jobs was a giant asshole. Warning. Personal anecdote. My father spent almost his entire career, close to 30 years, in the tech industry in California. He's a much nicer man than I've ever been. And I don't recall him ever saying anything negative about people he worked with or even companies he was competing with. He was a big believer in networking and was kind of old school about that sort of thing. So he generally had a positive mindset. Except when it came to Steve Jobs. He has repeatedly referred to him as the biggest f-king asshole in the entire industry. That he was just absolutely impossible to deal with. And that he stole ideas routinely. Ironically, the product my dad was pitching to Jobs was related to protecting intellectual property. They said they weren't interested. Then Apple tried to steal the idea and engineer their own version. I'd name the product. But my dad's name features prominently in a few of the articles. So, oh well. Last year I did a catering job for a movie called I Feel Pretty and Amy Schumer was the main actress and every day she would come in drunk and yell at everyone and always made production late. Making the movie take a lot longer to film than it should have resulting in 16 hours days, typically 12 hours. Edit. Going to go out on a limb and say Harvey Weinstein seems like a dick. One of my friends works for a big marketing firm. She had to escort Topher Grace around before a premiere and she said he was a complete arsehole for the couple days she had to be around him. Don't look Michael Keaton in the eye or say hi. He will rip you a new one. From interviews and stuff I've seen. He seems to like to jokingly act pissed off or intimidating. And he's really good at keeping a straight face when he jokes. Not really an asshole. But Dave Grohl has bad urinal etiquette. I went to King's Dominion when I was 9 and he was there. In an empty restroom. He used the urinal right next to me. I politely asked Liam Gallagher for a photo few years back. My reply was OFCK off and the middle finger. I thought it was quite funny though and still respect his work. It would have actually disappointed me if your encounter with Liam had gone any other way. I haven't met many but Tom Hanks, Keanu Reeves, Neil Gaiman and Dan Avedon are 4 of the nicest human beings I have ever met. Edit. Added Neil Gaiman. Almost forgot about him. Back in the 60s. Paul Newman filmed a movie in northern Wisconsin and came into a restaurant where my grandmother waited tables. He sat down in her section and my grandma said he looked tired. When she came up to him he looked up and said to her, "I suppose you're here for an autograph too?" My grandma said, "Mr. Newman, I'm not here for an autograph. I'm here for your order." She said he immediately became self-aware and apologized profusely. She said he was really nice to her and got a good laugh from what she said. She said she never asked for the autograph. but he left one with a nice tip. Not sure if you'd call her a celebrity, but Lele Pons. She used Amanda Cerny as a prop just to build her career. And even did things like block Amanda's followers on Instagram and set her account to private. Also, she treats anyone who isn't famous like they're a piece of shit. Edit. Also, I had to Google to see who that was. My only takeaway is that she has the biggest damn mouth I have ever seen. She makes Julia Roberts look like Damian Lewis. I'm friends with someone who worked on a set with Bruce Willis. An intern at one point went up to him and told him how much he loved and appreciated his work. Bruce smiled and said thank you. And as soon as the intern walked away, went to the guy's manager and proclaimed he would leave set if the intern wasn't fired immediately. Sounds like your friend may have glossed over a few details. Tom Hanks once ate 79 orphans because he thought it was funny. Kevin James, the actor from Paul Blart Mall Cop, heard he won't even interact with his fans. And if he goes into a store, he has people go in before and tell everyone to not even look at him. Edit. Spelling and other fixes. Edit. Looked up online about Kevin James and saw other people tell stories like how I described. Here's a comment I copied from a forum. Vince Vaughn and Kevin James were in New Haven, CT during a movie promotional tour. Everyone that met them said they were total f-king assholes. Wait staff at restaurants were told not to look at them and not to address them directly. When a waitress asked what he would like to drink, Kevin James said, "You were told not to talk to me directly." Someone went to say hi to Vince Vaughn while he was outside smoking a cigarette and he just barked, "Get away from me." Completely unrelated. But my husband sometimes writes down the strange things I say in my sleep. One time I rolled over, opened my eyes, and said, "Paul Blart Mime Cop." Do you know that story? Literally any Instagram celebrity. People with 20k followers asking for free things wherever they go and thinking that their follower ratio makes them important in any way. Johnny Cash once shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. Danny DeVito is the most down-to-earth guy I met. We ran into him in a hotel lobby back when he first joined Always Sunny and was promoting it. Talked with us for a few minutes and said he loved seeing his fans. I wish I watched Sunny sooner cause I barely knew who he was at time and I regret not saying anything as a shy kid. Control+F in veterans 0 results. Not Jessica Biel. Friend of a friend does some stage acting. Nothing huge. And they heard Jessica Biel was joining the production for a bit. I think they were half expecting a diva in dark glasses with an entourage, but she was very down to earth and friendly. She got to know everyone and if she wasn't needed for a scene she would go and help out with the catering or whatever. Timberlake is a lucky guy. On the other hand, I've never heard anything good from anyone who has had an interaction with Jessica Alba. That's the extent of my celebrity Jessica knowledge. Tobey Maguire. After watching Molly's Game, I'm kind of surprised by how big a douche he is. Read a heap of nasty crap about him in another thread somewheres. No. Not my favorite Spider-Man. Donald Trump. My dad knows someone who worked for him. Unfortunately, he is exactly as shitty as you would expect him to be. Edit before I get rained on by angry Republicans. Let it be known that I heard this shitty long before Trump ran for president. According to the lady we heard about him from, he is the most narcissistic asshole you'd ever meet in your life and that the media isn't fabricating much. As she said, what you see on TV is pretty much exactly what you get. He really is that arrogant. How the hell is Kevin Spacey not it? Kevin Spacey's actually a better guy than the press gave him. I took an acting class where he was a guest. He taught me to emote, be surprised, and how to milk a cow while blindfolded. He has disappeared. I want to start a game called Where in the FCK is Kevin Spacey? And whoever finds him gets to be arped by him. David Suzuki. He was speaking to the public at my place of work at the time 2 years ago. He wouldn't give anyone the time of day. He went into one of our offices, with windows, and I was doing work on the outside of the office, not paying attention or bugging him in any way, and he turned his back towards me and closed the office door and proceeded to chat on the office phone for a significant amount of time. He had a number of errand boys that looked like were run off their feet.